Welcome to Built with Grit. I'm your host and strategic partner in cost reduction, Luis Fernandez. And today we are joined by Yermi Kurkus, executive performance consultant. But before we get into that, if you're a fan of inspiring people and informative content, you come to the right place because that's all we do. So go ahead, help the like button with their e-commerce business by signing up to their newsletter. And with that, Yermi, how you doing, my friend?
Hey, thank you. Thank you so much for putting this together. This is awesome, and always love hanging out with like-minded business professionals. So this is a real honor and a real privilege.
Well, that's
Thank
very
you so
kind.
much for taking the time.
Oh man, I'm excited. You know, we've had a few conversations, and the last one that we had, where you were talking about your time, um, working in the prison system and all of this stuff, and you mentioned it so offhand, and I was like, man, this guy's got an amazing story. Like it was just like no big deal to you, and meanwhile, I'm like, I want to hear more, right? So I'm excited to have you here and to hear this story. And you just in the meeting we were just in, you were talking about getting a green card. So um why don't we just start, like, where are you originally from, and talk to us about kind of your
Sure.
journey up until when you decided to start your business. And I'll probably interrupt you like 10
Sure.
times.
Yeah. So go ahead, please. No worries. um, so what happens is the I guess like the 3 minute version of it. So I'm originally from Montreal, Canada. Um, Born and raised up there, and just never really connected with the cold and with the different stuff that was there. And my entire dream was always to move to a warmer climate. And, my biggest dream was to move to LA one day, which I did. And we're going to get to how that actually happened. But I grew up in a very like, we had an interesting way, like an interesting upbringing. So I grew up in a very entrepreneurial business family. Every single person has their own business, and business is like the core of our upbringing. But I also grew up in the Jewish Orthodox community, and that has a lot of like community and volunteer work and stuff like this. So I grew up in a very abusive household,
Mm.
and my way was just to escape from that, was to go out and to volunteer with these communal situations and stuff. And I was just so taken to helping people and being a volunteer and stuff like this, that my support system, my teachers, my parents, they all said, wow, you're really good at this. You know that there are professions in the world, where you help people and you make a living helping people. So I found that to be awesome. And something that my mom is in particular, she educated us in a way that, and I give a lot of talks about this, for parents who are raising children. Never ask your child, what do you want to be when you grow up? That actually is a disservice to the child.
Okay.
Maybe we'll expand on that a little bit soon, um,
So what
but
do
my
you
mom
ask?
always so my mom used to always ask us, "What's a problem you want to solve in the world?"
Huh.
And a little child, what's the problem that a child has? Like the biggest problem a child has is that I didn't get a cookie tonight, or something like that. I don't want to go to bed right now, or something like this.
Yeah.
Um, and so I always, like, in my mind, I always looked out for what's a problem, what's an issue, could I even solve it? Am I interested in solving it? These kind of questions. So that just trained me since a little child to always look at these kind of situations. And so I had a journey, trying to find how could I take my two passions, helping people and business, and put that together. And at some point, I started up a consulting company, back in 2008. It was the height of the crash. I just saw an opportunity. I was in business school at the time. I jumped in, and it was just a very difficult, starting up a business, and doing all that kind of stuff. And so I got to a point in 2010 where I just hit a brick wall and a big crash. Um, so my wife at the time leaves me, takes away the kids. My mom dies, and the business that I worked so hard building, I had almost 20 employees in it. The government forces to shut it down. And like and just like everything comes crashing down all in a matter of 10 days. So it's not like it took time. It came just, imagine getting hit by a ton of bricks. I had 3 ton of bricks in 10 days. And so I just pretty much collapse. And so for the next 18 months or so, I'm trying to recover from this, mental breakdown in a sense.
Yeah.
Fell into very strong clinical depression, up until the point of suicide. And and it's right at the very edge, right at the very end. And I kind of like look up to heaven, if you will. At the time, you don't know what to believe, and I literally just scream out and I just say, "Hey, you, whoever you are up there, whatever you are, um, you know, you did this and you fix it." Because like I never planned this life, abuse, hardship. All I ever wanted to do was, be a good person in a community and stuff like this. Um, you know, all like, I said it just didn't make sense that for 20 something years, God puts me on this earth, and this is how it ends. It just didn't make sense to me.
You
And I
go
said,
pick up
whoever you
Job.
are at this point, I don't know if what is that? Yeah,
Go pick
exactly.
Job.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
So I'm like, there has to be some greater purpose. There has to be something bigger. And I just don't know. I just don't know what it is. And at this point, it's kind of like I'm handing it over to you. And I just made a promise. And I said, if you do save me from this, I just dedicate my life to people. I dedicate my life to others. Um, and just to calm down from this hype, this craziness, I take a walk around the block just to chill out, take a breather. Bump into a buddy of mine. He's an advocate in prisons, so he's like a director of like advocacy for inmates. And so we got to talking, and I just asked him, "Hey, that's a cool job that you have. Do you have any opportunities for me to volunteer? Just randomly?" And he's like, "Do you have a rabbinical degree?" I said, "Yeah, it happens to be. I mean, I did it just to graduate from school, but like, cool, yeah." And he's like, "Cool, I actually need a rabbi in the prisons in California. Would you like to do it?" And I'm like, "Cool. Actually, my dream was, LA. So yeah, sure." And so that's how I fell into LA. And then I kind of like went to school. I went to get my psychology degrees. I was doing my own therapy. I got into mindfulness, because it was part of people I was meeting in the prisons and stuff like that. I became friendly with prison officials. I became friendly with other chaplains and other clergy in the prison world. And one thing just led to another, and I developed a program in the prison called One Up. And this One Up was to help inmates just live a more meaningful life, either within prison, if they're going to be there for the rest of their life, or if they come out, that they should not, fall back into their old ways, and just find meaning and purpose in their regular day to day life. And that turned out to be a phenomenal success. A couple of people who came out are extremely, extremely successful today, completely changed people. And some people in the prison that are still there and probably will be there for life, they're also transformed and they're doing some incredible stuff, even within behind walls. And I just saw all this and I was like, this doesn't make sense to me. It's just like I got a aha moment in the prison, and I was like, I come from a family of these business professionals, who have everything to live for. They're dreamers, and these guys who have nothing to live for, these inmates, they're living a better life than most people I know.
Wow.
And I kind of felt like this is weird, this is wrong, on my behalf, and I owe this to my people, the business professionals. And so I started doing some research. It took me about 12 months or so to do research, to see, could this program even work in a business setting, in a business world? And one of my buddies, went from $0 in sales to about $15 million in sales in just about 5 months. And then he's like, this is really cool stuff. Like, thank you so much for, your this program that you have. You should really consider coaching. You should really consider consulting. You should really consider doing this as a full-time job.
Yeah,
Um,
that's quite a jump. Yeah,
right?
your buddy
Yeah.
was right.
And Yeah. And so that kind of so then I told my bosses, I was like, I love you guys and I love what I'm doing, but I really owe this to my people and I gotta go. And like you mentioned, like I got my green card and I got like everything just happened all in one time in one shot. Um, and um, and then it was like 3 days later, COVID hit. So that's just what happened. I was ready to go. I had the whole business plan. I had everything set up to go. And ever since, we're just pivoting and we're just trying to learn more what people need and how these programs can help them. So that's my long and short version of my story.
Oh man, that's that's amazing. I have a lot of questions. Just hearing that is, I don't know how you come out of all of that happening in a 10-day span. Man, you know, you should be proud of yourself. That is just, that's incredible. And I didn't know that coming into this conversation. I mean, like I had goosebumps the entire time you were talking. It's just, whoo. Um, and then, you know, you tell us like going outside to take a breather. So how, to me, these stories are obviously always very compelling, about, how God intervenes.
Sure.
Mine isn't as extreme as yours, but I've had a few moments in life that were like that, that just, you look back, like that he obviously was there that day, right?
Mhm.
And you called out to him, he listened to you, and then it was just kind of showing off, like, all right, check this out, right?
Right.
Wait till you see what I got in store for you, right?
Oh gosh,
um
yeah.
that's woo, okay, sorry, I'm I'm touched by that, man. That's really amazing. So tell me a little bit about, if you're comfortable sharing, about this program that you did in the prisons. Like, how do you come up with something where you're looking at people with, they've lost hope, right? Like,
Sure.
and not, you're injecting hope and purpose, back into their lives. And um that's really powerful. I'm interested in hearing more. Like, what is that? How does it work? Like, what can you tell me about it?
Sure. Yeah. So that's a really interesting question. It's very deep. And you see, when I came into the prison system, I'll be fully honest with you. There was a huge amount of ego going in. I was just like, it was actually around the Hanukkah holiday of the Jewish Hanukkah holiday, where we go in and we light candles and all that stuff. And I was really intrigued because I knew, number one, in prison, it's really difficult to get in, okay,
Mm.
unless you commit a crime. People don't just walk into prison and just walk out. And so I found that extremely intriguing that I was going to be able to walk in and out of prison, freely in a sense.
Mm.
That was a really interesting point, and I kind of just wanted to do it for that experience. The second thing was you don't just light fires in a prison, like it's actually they don't do that. Okay, so you need like these special permissions, and there's like all these like special things that go on. It's a big deal. Okay,
Mm.
and so for me, it was just more like intriguing that I was going to do this. And hey, it was a 2 week fully paid, all expense paid trip from Montreal in December to LA in December. It was brilliant, like so
Yeah.
for me, that was my attitude coming in. So it was more like screw all what's going on. Well, the language was more colorful than that, but I mean, like, f all that's going on, and I'm just going to run away to La La Land and screw this kind of thing. So that's really really the attitude I had coming in. It was 3 days into this whole journey, um, and I suddenly it occurred to me what was really happening and what was really going on. And you really really get this smack of humility comes at you so quickly. All of a sudden you start realizing that these are really really sad people. These are really people in crazy situations. Um, and like little shares that you share, and then I typically open up the floor to ask them, what do like what is it that you take away from candles and lights and you know miracles and all these things. And a lot of them are actually sharing their stories, and you suddenly notice like these people, they did terrible things, don't get me wrong, but they aren't in a really really sad position. And the more I started exploring who these people were, the more I was learning about myself as well. And it became like there's just no words to really describe how like you really deflate so quickly in these kind of situations. Um, and I think the turning point was really just continuously doing this. And my story didn't just end in, divorce and sort of just joining the prison or whatever. After a while, after like about 2, 3 years of doing this, I was like, hey, I'm a changed guy. Back in Montreal, I had a terrible rumor going around about me, really bad, reputation and all that stuff. Hey, I'm much better now. I'm doing, community work. I'm so much, now it's time to kind of settle down again and get remarried and, just start a new life again.
Hmm.
Um, and all of a sudden I realized it's not that easy. And I had a really tough time, finding another wife, getting remarried, dating again, dealing with rumors from another place. And just, I was also getting into understanding better who I was and what kind of woman I want to marry. And so I'm actually in the middle of writing a book about it, the 10 lessons that I learned from dating, and actually ending up finding the wife of my dreams. Despite what everybody told me, you'll never meet her. It's never going to happen. This woman doesn't exist, all that kind of stuff. And I ended up getting married to her, about now it's 18 months ago or so. And I learned these lessons in business, and that's what I'm applying to my business right now, and it seems to be working. So I'm in the middle of writing this book about it, and it just shows that we all go through our hardships, we all go through difficulties. One Up was born from that. It was born from me going through my personal hardships, meeting people who were going through their hardships, and just saying, there has to be something bigger going on. There has to be a bigger purpose. People who end up in prison. I've also met people who are 100% innocent, ended up proven to be innocent, got released and everything. And
Mm.
they wasted 5 years of prison time. And the government is like, oh, we're sorry, mistake, go home now, yeah, I encourage people to watch it. There's a movie called Crown Heights, actually.
Mm.
It's on Amazon Prime if you have it. Watch it. It's this guy who was in prison for 20 something years for a murder he's never committed. They sentenced him for a murder he has never committed, and there were proof, and his family went and worked very hard to prove it. I think it was 17 or 18 years, close to like 20 years of prison. And the government was like, oh, wow, the DNA proves that you didn't do it. We're sorry. Go home now. And like, this is 18, 20 years that the guy will never get back.
Right.
Like what do you do about that? And unfortunately, that's the prison system.
Yeah.
And, a lot of us, the business professionals, we come into business because we have a purpose why we're starting up our business. We have a purpose of what we're trying to do. And we face these hardships. People tell us, oh, you're just dreaming, or people tell us, whatever it is. And that's where I found my purpose. I was helping these inmates, find their purpose. And I said, there are people out there who are starting up their businesses, and who's there to really hold their hand? Who's there to really be there for them? Not as a like consultants are like, oh, I have all these solutions or I have all this experience. No, no, no. You want that? There's many, many other consultants. That's not who I am. I'm the guy who gets into the trenches with you. Like I go down into the mud with you, and I will be there with you. I will stand by you. because who else does that? That's
Right.
that's the ultimate question.
Man, yeah, it's speaking of that Crown Heights. So we've watched Innocence Project, and it's a community of thought that I've plugged into, and I've actually on this podcast I've interviewed ex felons, and just getting to know these people, and recognizing that these are people that they do have value and purpose,
Mhm.
and there's problems that we it's a forgotten portion of the population, and we really need to take a serious look at our recidivism rates. And
Sure.
this is I think it's a big problem. Our prison population exploding over 400% in the last 40 years.
Mm.
And overcrowding, like I could go on, right? Like obviously I'm plugged into this, and my heart goes out to that as well. And but it's just there are forgotten people, and don't get me wrong, some of them really need to be in there,
Oh
and
yeah.
need to never be let out, right?
Agreed. Yes.
Those people exist. Like that is the best place for them to be. um
Could I
but
just
the
could I interrupt you for one quick second? And just because this is really valuable information, in all my years, 8 years of working in the prison, I could literally count to you on my one hand. I will not finish one hand. I will get maybe three or four people that I agree with you must be there, should never come out, should, you know, and like you're right. But I've worked with thousands of inmates, and they all have opportunities. They all could change their life. They could all, and many of them did, by the way. I'm talking about hundreds of people did. That's the reality.
Mhm.
And again, on one hand, and I wouldn't finish the one hand of how many people I was threatened by one of them, and like I had to, part of my complaint actually was his reason why he got denied parole.
Mm.
He had a list of like hit list of people he wants to go after, when he gets approved for parole. And I had that hit list and I gave it to the officials, and that's in his file now. So, but you have the
Yeah.
crazies, and those deserve to be there, but they're very, very minute. But I'm sorry, go on.
No, don't apologize. This is a conversation, right? So that's this is gonna go. So yeah, and it's I'm concerned that we treat them as all that, like they're all persona non grata, and
Right.
not recognizing, how easy it is to fall into some of these traps. And you know what's to say a guy like you that's going through that 10-day period, right, and then just snaps and does something,
Right.
that goes to a bar and drinks heavily because you're going through this event, and then you get in your car, and now someone else's life is impacted forever, including
Sure.
yours, right? That's not to say that you have nothing to produce to society, and you know it, I don't know, I could see the argument on both sides on that particular example I just gave, but I'm just saying, like, I think there's something that we need to take a look at and examine. I also think it's interesting that that place, right? Like you went down into this deep dark hole, and you basically mined diamonds while you were down there.
Mhm.
And now you're coming out and you're like, look at the stuff that I found, right? Um,
Right.
and that's just so cool to me. So what's the secret, right? Like you saying you're getting down in the trenches with them. I don't know, give me like 3 tips or something that
Sure.
we could share with somebody
So
and say, let's look at this.
yeah, so the real that you hit the nail on the head, and the real thing that we have to really realize is that nothing happens by chance, and things don't happen to us; they happen through us. So it's in one, but you know, when we start really focusing in on, you know, we have to focus on things are not just happening, you know, that we have to just excuse me for a split second. Sorry
Yeah.
about that. Yeah. The door is closed. I appreciate it. All right. Sorry.
It's all
I
good.
may have not put up I may not have put up the sign properly. She realized and she's like, oh my god, I didn't realize. It's all good. It was like you're the first person that it ever happened to. It's so weird. All right, let's make this an easy cut for you. I apologize about
All
that.
right, all right.
It's gonna be fun. Anyway, so just going back. So, the it's really like two tips in one, and a third tip, is a separate thing. But if I start victimizing myself right away, so like that example that you said, I went to the bar to drink or whatever. Um, the reason why I'm responsible if something negative comes out is because I made an initial stupid decision. I went to the bar. And many people are gonna be like, oh well, it's just the bar, it's just to go drink and just to like, you know, uh, when you're depressed, that's what you do or whatever, No, when you're depressed, you should be, checking out like why are you depressed or why are you, it's that self-awareness. So I see it as these are opportunities. These are, something negative that happens to me. When anytime it happens to me, here's actually a great example. This is really going to demonstrate it. I mentioned before, meeting my wife. Um, I was involved in a very particular case. They called me out. They asked me to come out there. They heard about my program at this point. Um, you know, there was a kid, young guy, um, was excited that he got his license. His family has nice cars. Decided to show off his nice car that he's finally able to drive. Takes it for a joyride. Drives at high speeds, and out of nowhere, this car comes out. Didn't have enough time to stop, and an accident. And unfortunately, the driver of the other car lost his life. And so, this is unfortunately a typical situation that happens more often than we would like it to happen. And for some reason, this kid, the prosecution decided to go all out on him. The victim family was also very hurt by the situation, and they were going to give him a very long time of prison. And they made it sound as if this kid woke up in the morning, decided to joyride, and decided to kill somebody. This was a total accident. And the family calls me up. They already heard about my program. It had some kind of clout already. And they said, could you attest to his character that he's not this kind of kid? He's not this kind of person. And so I worked with him for about 18 months. And I was going to be a key witness in a sense. I was one of three key witnesses that were going to come testify to the child's behavior, to the child's character, um, should he really sit in prison for so long. And so this was a very, very, a case I took to heart because he was a really good kid and he really, didn't deserve this. And I saw much more potential, coming out of this unfortunate situation, but there was some good potential coming out. And so, um, in middle of all this, my immigration lawyer calls me up and tells me, Yermi, this portion of your immigration has come out. It's done, whatever. And the law is that you have to leave the country, reapply for the next step in the immigration process, and then you could come back. And I was like, okay, how long does that take? So he goes, well, thanks to Trump, like this could take a very long time. It could take, like I heard, it takes a minimum of 8 months. And I was like, no, 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 no. Like we need to figure this. Like, no, 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 we can't do this. And I also don't really have anywhere to go right now. Like
Hmm.
my family left Canada at this point. Where am I even supposed to go at this point? And I'm a key witness in this court case. Like, could you explain that to them? Is there a way? Basically, long story short, there was nothing I could do about it, and I really had to go. And I ended up going back to Israel, and back to my abusive, father, and back to all that stuff. And I was really, really in a like for like 2 days, I was in a funk, And I remembered that One Up program, and I said, no, 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 this is not happening to me.
Hmm.
It's happening through me. There's some kind of reason why God is taking me out of this situation, whatever it is. God's putting me in another situation. There has to be something more. I don't know what the answer is yet, but there has to be something more. And at this point, I'm really frustrated. I really want to get married and I really want to meet the right person. And I really, it's been 8 years now. It's crazy at this point. And so I told everybody, I was like, oh no, 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 I'm just going for a short period of time. I'm going to Israel. I'm going to meet my wife. I'm going to meet the person of my dreams. I'll be right back. Don't worry, it's all cool. That was literally
So you
my
said that
approach.
before you left.
Yeah, yeah. For like a week or two, people knew what it meant to me, leaving and whatever. And those who knew that I was involved in this case and how I was so active in the case, and they knew how much this was going to affect me. And I was like, no, 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 this is just what it is. It's like, yeah, no. And so I get to Israel. I was there only for 4 months. I came back engaged to the woman of my dream.
Hmm.
And a couple of weeks later, like I think it was a month or two later, we ended up getting married. We went back to Israel, just to get married where we met, kind of thing. It was really beautiful. Um, but the point is, and at the end, oh, here's the kicker. I arrived back to America, which, by the way, was a miracle that I got it in 4 months. That in itself was a miracle. I get back to the USA, and the day that I land, I stick my SIM card back into my phone, and I got a message, like a text or an answering machine. Today is the date, such and such. Today is the hour, such and such. Literally the exact same time that I landed. The sister of this kid told me tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., is the court case. Are you going to be there? The day that I landed back in the USA was the day before. I was still jet lagged on the way to the court. Yeah,
Oh
it was crazy.
man, what an awesome story!
Right.
Wow. So how'd it go?
So the kid ended up getting he was released. Everything was good. Got a few months of house arrest, a few years of community service, which and he paid restitution to the family of the victims and stuff like that. And thank God. And actually, they made peace and they actually became friendly with each other. It's a whole story. It's crazy, but it was a huge turnaround. It was a huge, crazy turnaround. Yeah. So,
Wow, that's amazing. Okay, so how did you meet your wife? I
oh
mean, I know
wow.
you were in Israel. So this is like mind blowing.
Yeah.
You
Um,
are being told you need to leave. Now, did you know you were, when they said you had to go, did you know that it was going to be Israel?
so yeah, so where my family left Canada and they moved to Israel,
Okay.
mainly because when my mom died, so she wanted to be buried in Israel. So
Hmm.
as after the family finished grieving, they just wanted to be closer to my mom in a sense. So they just all ended up immigrating to Israel, and now everybody's there. So they have lives over there and everything is there.
And
And I couldn't visit them during this whole period of time because the kind of visa that I had did not allow me to leave the country. It was a whole complicated thing.
yeah.
So anyway, so I ended up getting there, and I was kind of like hesitant that I was going to stay again with my dad, and I know my dad is, the way he is and whatever it is, and I was like, no, but I have one up now. Now I could handle situations, like I have one up now, so this is different, and that's really the headset. Um, then things started getting bad again, and so I just would take the train from where my dad lives, to Jerusalem, and I would just go to Jerusalem almost on a daily basis, and most of it was to just pray at the Western Wall, which is like one of the holiest sites in Jewish. And I would just spend my entire day at the Western Wall every day praying.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, and I mean there was so many small little intricacies that happened during this time, like major miracles were happening on a daily basis. Uh, my former wife did not allow me to see my kids for 6 years. And if I was going to take legal action, it would have been really bad. So I chose not to take legal action. Um, all of a sudden, she calls me up and she's like, "Could you pray for us or whatever?" I was like, "How did you know that I'm going to the Western Wall?" Yeah, I want you back in, the kids' lives and whatever. Like random things were happening on a daily basis. Um, and all of a sudden, there was somebody who called me up. Hey, I know this woman. She's from LA. She's involved in, prison reform. She's a psychologist for these inmates and stuff like that. Would you like to meet her? She's absolutely awesome. She lives here in Israel right now. You're both from LA. You're both in prison. Go, go meet her. So I ended up meeting her, and she was totally not my type. Totally not, I was not interested at all. you know, and she's like, by the way, I have a friend, my roommate, and she's really cool. I think you should meet her. And so every single time she
So you
set
weren't
up,
her type either.
no, no, we were not at all each other's type. She's like aggressive, and and I'm like calm, and I'm and we were just so not not each other's type. Great friend. We're still friends still today. She's actually my wife's best friend.
Yeah.
Uh, but anyhow, so she's like, no, you just really remind me of my roommate, my best friend. And every single time I was gonna go meet this, best friend, this roommate, something came up. My sister gave birth, so we did a party for the kid, or whatever it was. Every single time I was scheduled to go meet my wife, or at the time this girl, nothing was happening. And so one time there was it was New Year's Eve. Um, and I was going to be invited to this party. And I'm not a party guy. Like I don't go, bashing or any of that stuff. But this one was going to be like a singles event type of thing. It was going to be cool. Everybody told me go, 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 and I was like, not my thing. I ended up going, like kind of like okay, whatever. And I see this woman like with the biggest smile ever across the hall, the cross on the other side, and that to me was just super attractive to see somebody like with so much happiness, and it was one of my core values. So I had to walk up to her. Turns out that this is the girl, and this is the stuff, and one thing led to another. Just talking, and ended up dating, and then just getting married. So that's how that happened.
That's really cool. That it almost sounds like a what are those called, sitcom or something like that, right? Like it could be a How I Met Your Mother,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, I will be telling my kids this is how I met your mother. So
Oh man. All right. So
yeah.
that's awesome. And thank you so much for sharing that. That's really cool. So we were going through, I probably derailed you. We were talking about like the three, and you've given us some nuggets, right? Like it's not happening to me, it's happening through me. And you've mentioned the One Up
Mhm.
program. And you talked about how it's helped your buddy, get to a $15 million, was it 15 or five or something like that, multi-million dollar revenue.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of piecing together these really small little snippets. So what is kind of like the I guess the core message of the One Up program? And then if somebody is listening into this, and they say, well, that's kind of interesting, I'd like to hear more. Like, how do they get a hold of you?
Sure, sure. So the best way to do it is really to follow me on social media. My main platform is LinkedIn, um, followed very closely by this other, platform, Bizfluence. I'm very, very active there. I have these videos that I post and these shares that I post, and they typically are, in campaigns, if you will. Um, and really, like right now, the main campaign that's going is core values. And so what I help business professionals identify is core values. Who are you at your core? Really, it's about you. Um, the kind of coaching approach that I take, or the kind of consulting approach that I take, is that I just really worked really hard on the personality that I am, and so I'm just present in the moment to be there for the person who needs me. And really, the only tools that I could help other people is how to become present in themselves. So if you are a person that is really present in your moment, you are going to make much, much wiser decisions. And that's going to affect your business relatively quickly. You're going to make fast decisions. You're going to make wise decisions, emotionally intelligent decisions. You're going to be able to hire the right people around you. You only want to hang out with what I call irresistible people. These irresistible people will be irresistible to your customers. The customers will just absolutely love you. They only want to do business with you. Um, and basically that was also the third, the third tip was, if you are really whole with yourself, if you are whole with yourself, you're going to be successful across the board with everything. Nobody could tell you how successful or how not successful you're going to be, because you just know you and you have all the answers. And you just really have to find it within you, especially when you are believing that things are just happening through you. The world had the universe is set up for your success. You just have to tap into it. That's ultimately what it is, and there's nothing that's going to stop you. That's the simple part of it.
All right, I'm motivated now. So we're gonna do this, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
We're gonna hit
So the short
what is
answer, the
what's
short
it?
answer is just to find me on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn, Bisfluence, or my email, which is basically my name, Yermi at yermikurkus.com. Those are the best ways to get hold of me. So I'm very
Awesome.
accessible.
I really appreciate this and the story that you have. Uh, I'm really inspired. So truly, and I feel like I probably need to go say a few prayers too, because that seems to work. Yeah, right.
So I mean, there's different ways. I mean, that's part of One Up, that it teaches you that you have your own language, if you will. It doesn't have to be to God or Allah, or I don't care what you call this. I call it a higher power. You're connecting your higher version of yourself to this system that is in the world, and that's really what the One Up program really focuses on, is how to connect to these things that are bigger than. I don't care what you call it a tree, call it, I don't care what you call it. But at least you have something that is more than just you. You have to remove this ego portion of you and connect to something bigger.
Yeah.
And I do want to do this. I do want to thank you and your audience, for giving me this platform and to allowing me. And in return, I would love to offer, whoever does reach out to me, I will be publishing that book. It's called For the Love of Success. That's that story of how my journey in the dating world and how that applies to business, and how you could learn lessons from it. The connection. There's 10 lessons there. I offer that book for free for whoever mentions this
Oh, that's
this
really cool.
podcast or whatever it is. Whoever does reach out, I will offer that book for free. It's going to be a e download or whatever they call it.
Right.
So that's going to be available to you guys.
Oh, that's awesome, man. Well, thank you so much, and thank you for coming and sharing your story, and really just awesome. So, hopefully, folks have listened into this point, and they're gonna get themselves that free gift, and stick around and subscribe, and then go link up with Yermi on LinkedIn, and I'll drop a little thing about Bizfluence, what that's all about, in the description. Oh. Thank you, sir.
Awesome. Thank you.